Hello and welcome to another video where we look at our latest release, which is the Dwarven Halls campaign for Advanced Fighting Fantasy. So I did a couple of videos about this last year in advance of the Kickstarter, the Game Found campaign that I ran, and it's been in preparation for quite some time. And this is quite a chunky book. So although the print files are not being submitted until Monday, the PDF is over 200 pages for a campaign. So we've got quite a big adventure here. This is not a sort of 2-3 sessions and you're done. This is probably 30 to 40 sessions at least if the director doesn't expand it with additional material. So what is the campaign about? So it was very much inspired by the sorcery campaign, the Chamois Tanty Hills, City Porter Traps, etc. books. Because in those, you've got an epic journey to achieve a quest. And that is what I was aiming for. So I didn't want to just repeat the travel across land, go through some hills, go through a city, go through some land, get to your final destination. But I wanted something that felt a bit like it whilst also being different. So you start off this campaign in an inn in northeastern Cornwall, not a couple of days travel from Arion. So I wanted to keep it tied in to the city of Arion, etc. and so on. There are specific hero creation rules in this book because it is designed for heroes above novice but not quite competent. So these are starting heroes. These are not powerful heroes with 7 skill and so on. They generally have 5 skill and 1 point in some special skills. They're not quite ordinary people, but they're only a bit better than that. So I wanted to go very much for a low level, to use a D&D type phrase, campaign. So they start out at this tavern. And then they have a long journey. Now, there are various bits that are not journey chapters. There are 10 chapters in here. A couple of them are not journeys across any sort of terrain. One of them is a town of sorts. There's a couple of big dungeons, but and you've got your introductory chapters, but you've got quite a few of the chapters are long journeys. And like the sorcery campaign, there's no one way through. This is not they set out and they encounter A, and then they encounter B, and then they encounter C, and then they get somewhere where they rest, and then they encounter D, and then they encounter E. There are choices. And the choices have implications. Some choices are going to be tougher than others for certain characters. So there are going to be certain elements that have harder monsters, harder enemies to fight. And yes, they're harder fights. Now, if you've got a combat heavy party, they're probably a bit easier. Others will have challenges. So there might be things to climb. There might be waterfalls. There might be deep holes. There might be chasms or whatever. They require a different skill set to the fighting. But then you've got NPCs. There are people you're going to have to talk to and deal with in that way. So having that discussion type character, that persuasion type character also works. There are friendly people. There are traps. There are locks. And so whatever type of character you have, whether it's a rogue type, a fighter type, a spellcaster, whatever, there is something to challenge you, and certain ways are going to be more difficult or easier for certain parties. So there are implications and there are clues as well. It's not just a case of should we go left or right, let's flip a coin, we'll go left, it happens to be a harder fight. There are clues for why you should go one way or the other, and what decisions you should make. And there are lots and lots of different things to encounter. Many of them are mini dungeons. So here you see a 3-room dungeon. So there are specific enemies here, there are specific rewards, prizes, things that will be helpful later. But they are mini dungeons. So when you're running them, there might be as you see with that previous one, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these that the players encounter on their path through a particular chapter. Now, these mini dungeons are unlikely to take an entire game session. You could probably get through 2 or 3 in a 3 or 4 hour game session, depending on circumstances, obviously. So you've got lots of these little mini dungeons. You've got many of the challenges, physical challenges, don't have maps. Some do. Some of the NPCs have specific things you need to do or not. There are friends who can benefit you in certain ways. And we've got various stops included within this. And I think that's important as well, because one of the things, if you read through the sorcery game books, is how much of a resource management those books are. And I've mentioned this before on these videos. AFF is about managing your healing abilities if you're a priest, about managing your power points if you're a mage, about managing your stamina for pretty much everyone, but especially sorcerers, about managing your provisions, about managing your money. In Shemitenti Hills, you cannot turn up at that first village and buy everything from the merchant. For one thing, you're only allowed to choose 3 items, and for another thing, you haven't got enough money. But if you spend all your money on items, when you get to the next place where there's an inn and you can buy food and a room for the night, you can't afford it, which means you have to sleep outside, which means you have encounters. So you've got to manage money, you've got to manage provisions, stamina, you've got to manage luck. If you test your luck 3 times in the first encounter and 3 times in the second encounter, you have no luck left. Now, there are, again, ways to restore luck built into this campaign. But you're going to get back a couple here and 1 here and a few there and so on. You're not going to get back loads. So you spend loads of luck in the first encounter, it's gone. So AFF is a resource management. And so from that point of view, stopping is really important. As you can see from here, we've got all newly commissioned art by Stephen Marin, which is absolutely fantastic. And as you can see from the illustration for the final room, it very much is the traditional fighting fantasy AFF black line art style, and it really does help give it that classic fighting fantasy feel. And because you're looking at 30-40 sessions, if most groups played that at 1 session a week, and then you've got holidays and birthdays and people being ill and whatever, you're probably talking a year plus if you play nothing but this. But there are extra guidelines in there for expanding this, putting in extra bits. So even without expanding it, you've got a year plus of gaming from this book. And of course, the thing about that is, and being so many sessions, when you get to the end of it, it feels epic because your heroes have been on this big journey, and it might not be long in terms of days, whatever it is, 12, 14 days, but it will feel epic because you've done so many things. And in a way, that's the benefit of having these micro encounters. If you have a campaign which is 3 separate dungeons and that's it, each dungeon feels like one thing. Whereas here, having these micro encounters, because each micro dungeon feels like one thing. So you saw the magma caves or the lizard men or the lofty caves or the cold pools or whatever. They feel like one thing. So you might end up encountering, 70 or 80 different regions across your journey. Now, if you're encountering 70 different micro regions, or whatever it might be, 50 or something like that, 50 odd micro regions, that feels like you've done lots of different things on that journey. And I think that's what helps make it feel epic. And of course, you're saving a dwarven town and you're defeating a powerful enemy who may or may not recur in the future. That is what feels epic, I think. So obviously, if you backed the GameFound, then you will already have the PDF and you'll be getting a code, if you back to appropriate level, in the very near future to get your print copy. But if not, I think you're going to enjoy this if you enjoy the classic AFF and the classic fighting fantasy type adventures and campaigns. And it is a fairly chunky book. There is a lot in there, but I think it very much hits that classic feel, and I have to say, as I probably would, I'm really, really, really happy with how it's turned out. So hopefully that's useful, and thank you very much.